It was, and I learned so much. And think about it, our bodies are what, 78%, 84%
Yes,
water.
we talked about that
That's just
too.
the earth having so
Absolutely.
much
So is
water.
the earth.
So
Yes, it's life.
do the math on that.
Life.
The crystals of the water when it was like a love thing were beautiful, like
Yes,
beautiful
exactly. They're
snowflakes.
like snowflakes. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other ones were like this jagged,
It's so
like,
funny. That's exactly what we were talking about.
yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And our bodies, we're water. We're
Yes,
living water.
absolutely we are. Yeah.
So
And I
it
mean,
just,
and yeah, the oceans, look at the oceans. They cover mostly, right? The entire earth is covered in water.
and
Still, but we have to be careful.
well, interesting enough, I was sailing yesterday
Oh,
and
speaking
I
of
was
water,
out on the San Francisco Bay.
another benefit of water.
I mean, yeah. And I'm out there and I'm just happy and just you're seeing all this water and all this big space and you're like, oh, you know what? My problems are this, this tiny. It
Yes.
doesn't really matter. And I just was just fed by the beauty and the the air and the water splashing. It just was delightful and just really lifted me up, and I was
Um,
thrilled to be invited on that trip yesterday. So
That's fantastic. I know I've been lucky enough to be on a few trips on ships and whatnot. Once a yacht, my dad was
yeah.
invited somewhere and I ended up going with him. But also we did like a hornblower tour.
Sure.
This was actually a New Year's Eve party. Again, my this was my father. He and his wife at the time they invited me along, and I was like I was divorced at the time,
Mhm.
and so I was like, okay, well, let's go and see what's happening. Took my Dramamine because
Right.
I can't do it without Dramamine, but it
Right.
was fun. But years before, though, I had a friend who invited me on a small boat, and that was really interesting because we ended up getting under the Golden Gate Bridge.
Right.
And
Right.
this was a sailboat where I can't tell you the nomenclature right now, but he taught me literally like right before we got on. He's like, okay, here's what you have to do. This is what you have to do. And I had to actually pull the ropes
It's
and
working.
do the stuff with my weight. Oh my gosh, this was such an adventure. I will never forget it. It was one of the funnest, wonderful things I've ever done. But I had to watch it not to get hit
Right.
in the head. He's like, okay, that
Right.
taught me these things. Like,
You have
remember, you gotta duck down or you're gonna get hit. And so we did that, but I remember going so fast and the salt water just splashing on. But it was so much fun. But you know what happened? The wind died right after we got out there. We're like,
right.
oh my gosh, I'm like, how are we gonna? It's like, don't worry, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. It's like engineer mind guy. My friend, he was like, no worries, no worries, I got this. Let's just have lunch or whatever. We brought
Yeah.
something, so we had lunch, and then we were fine. We came back. He had a little motor on this thing, but I was a little worried because we were out there. But
Right.
what a great, fun experience, and oh my gosh, I love it. I love what you just said about realizing how small we are
Yeah.
in this whole scheme of things.
Right. And it makes your problems that you're crying about or this happened or that happened.
We all are.
It's not big at all. And
Right.
what you were saying about when somebody starts talking negatively that you try to get them on something else. And I'm the same way. I said, you know what, let's pivot to this subject, right?
Yeah.
And humor, a lot of comedy comes from tragedy.
Oh,
Okay.
absolutely. Hmm.
So breast cancer turned into this comedy career for me. And as a child, this obviously was my defense mechanism. So
Sure.
when something bad happened, I made everybody laugh to try to make people feel better. And so I believe I think it was Woody Allen that said that humor is the intersection between tragedy and time. And it's in the darkness is where the funny is. And um, comedians, it takes a while to find out who you are on stage. And I've been to so many personal growth seminars because that's also something I love spas and personal
Right.
growth seminars. Yeah, so that's my thing. And so it's like peeling the onion back and trying
Yeah.
to figure out
Hmm.
what's in here.
That's
And
music. Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
I get close to the darkness and I'm like, oh, whatever. But as I've grown as a comedian, I've gotten closer and closer to who I am. And I've had the courage to tell you who I am on stage and what I've done and how I move through the world and how I interact with people. And a lot of it is edgy. It's it's edgy.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. And would you say that so it's amplified? I'm sure your personality was already like this, right? But would you say that now you're amplified more in that direction? Like you wouldn't be able to stop someone on the street and say, "Hey, you just raised the bar for all the good-looking people on the side of the street." I mean, would you do something like this before, or is this something new that makes you now amplify that part of your personality?
So I've always been a big flirt, big
Yes.
chatting everybody. I mean, in my little in when I was in school, I had a real special desk next to the teacher because I kept like, hey, whatever.
He's a
And
troublemaker. We
I
gotta
was
get
in
over here.
trouble. And they're like, this is your special desk, right? And
How cute. Uh,
my mom marched down there and she said, hey, what are you doing? She just wants to express herself and talk about her project and do this. And she gave her a what's what. But so I've always been like that. But as I have aged, I realized, and as I've moved from the very conservative, you know, Atlanta, North Carolina, as I've learned, so I've aged and moved to a place where people have, I believe, more, they're open minds and more inclusive.
of course.
And when you get older, you're like, you know what?
Don't
This is
care.
who I am. You know what? You know what? And I did something last night, and I would not like nobody else would say they did it, but then I say that I did it, and people are like, I've done that too.
Right.
You know,
If they fess up, right? Yeah,
so
exactly.
so I feel that a comedian, or at least with me, I say what people want to
Want
say,
to say.
but
Mhm.
don't or can't. And I do things that people don't or won't do. And if they did it, they would never tell anybody. So I actually expose quite a bit of my craziness on stage.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of things that I'm vulnerable about. And so that's about finding out who you are and being authentic on stage.
And that
And
makes
it's
you real. Yeah, exactly.
so it take, the
That's the
surface
best kind
comedy,
of comedy, right?
you go in and you go deep, and then you say, hey, this is who I am. I love
Make
men.
you believe it.
I love men. I love sex. You know what I mean? If you're in it and I'm in it, we both decide, yeah, hey, let's have fun. Let's do this. You only live once, and if you do it right, that's the only you only have to do it once. So
Right.
I'm I'm somebody that people have been living vicariously through for years. And I supposedly have a couple books in me that people think you should write a book, you should do this.
Absolutely. Yes, you should. I think
So
it will be fantastic. Only don't put too much pressure on yourself because I know it can make you feel anxious or whatnot. But the way I did, I ended up finishing and publishing finally something, of fiction. Is that
yeah.
I took advice from a writer basically who said, you know what, I set out the exact number of words I want to write like every day or whatever, divided it up, say I want my book or my play to be this long and and you kind of worked it backwards, just like any goals, right? Kind of like
Right.
we're supposed to do. So like 800 words a day or whatever. And the problem is you don't always feel inspired, right? So you kind of sit down and you go, okay, what am I going to do? But I found that once I started, even if like the first sentence I wasn't happy with or whatever, it will kind of start, right? It starts going. So that was kind of my thing. And I just said, okay. And I had to make myself focus because I have other projects I'm writing, right? So that's the problem, because you have many interests. I can tell you have many passions, many interests. So you're torn, right? It's like, well, should I be doing this? And right now I want to write down about this. But and you can do that. Did you know that, I mean, there's a lot of like writers that will give you different, they have different ways, right? How they do this. But one of the like major stream writers, she's not like great literature or whatever, but she's very popular. She said she always had like, and she's major, but she had like 7 projects literally at the same time. She was always writing 7, right? Or something like that, a large number, which makes sense to me because like, and I started doing that. And I actually like, if I want to write something from my memoir, a day, like something comes to me, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this, but then I'm gonna do this. But now I said, okay, but now you need to finish this one. So I'm working on this other play, which I know, I'm like, okay, which one can you finish the fastest, right? Well, that's probably the one. And then go back to the memoir. But if something comes to my mind, just write it down.
Right, right.
But start or do it, Leslie, because I mean, are you kidding me? From what you've gone through and your life, and it's so interesting and fun. You're such a great personality. You need to write it down, girl.
I have a ADHD, and so this is the issue. My whole life, I've had great ideas. I've done crazy, crazy things, and all these things. I just need somebody to kind of sit me down. Oh, you got to do this because I'm always all over the place, and that's the thing. And so many creative people have
Yes.
ADD because their minds are going over here.
Oh yeah.
And the same
1,000 miles an hour always.
the same thing that got me in trouble in school got me in trouble in my when I was in different jobs because we'd be in meetings and the manager's saying something and then I just spin off. It just comes out something funny. Everybody laughs. But in the meantime, like it
I
takes
used to always, I mean, I already, they already know, like if I start talking, they give me like, okay, we have 2 minutes, Mirella.
the time the meeting ended up being
So
longer.
I'm like, I think I'm going to do a podcast. I like talking. So there
Exactly.
you go. So, that was my thing. But yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I'm the same way. I mean, I go off on different tangents, but yeah, but the way to keep yourself, maybe, what I do is, and I told my friend this the other day too, who's trying to write something. And I said, find a place in your house or set up a place that you feel really comfortable, where you really like to be, right? It could be like a corner of your couch. It could be just, and nowadays we can have the laptop in our lap. We don't have to, or even some people use iPads, whatever. You can even dictate, actually. You
That's
can dictate on your phone. Do you do ideas and jokes on that, like on your
so
memo?
yes,
Yeah,
I
I
do.
do that too. Yeah.
And so
And
I just have
Siri
a whole
messes up, but I don't have an app. You can actually, my brother actually is writing now too, and he was looking for an app which can do that, and you can actually dictate to an app. They have all sorts of things, but I've been using Siri just for quick like ideas, right? But Siri doesn't always get it right. But it's funny because with the tangents and how our minds are going always, it's funny because I remember when I met my husband, which is now like 21 years ago, a long time ago. He said, "Hey, honey, are you on something? Like, what? Why are you always?" I'm like, "No, I'm high on life. This is how I am all the time." So he was like, "Woohoo!" He was like, "This is cool," And yeah, so it's been kind of like this, and of course, life is crazy and takes you in all kinds of directions, but I mean, I was kind of repressed actually when I was younger. I grew up, having to be quiet and, very Catholic, very, like, it's funny because your mom, actually, my mom unfortunately passed away recently, but uh, I was the mom like your mom. Like if somebody, did anything with my son or my kids, my stepson, whatever, that I didn't like, I would be like right there. I'd be like, oh, okay, that's not like, I didn't have many reasons to do that. But I mean, if there was something like this, I'd be like, okay, if I see something's not right, I'd be like right there.
right.
What do you think? But it took me a while. I wasn't like this, all the time because, like I said, it was a process, right? But definitely getting older, getting wiser, getting experience under your belt, being divorced for like 10 years and raising my son and, with the help of my mom a little bit. But I was the mother and the father, I was it pretty much. And, that taught me a lot too about being independent and, just kind of taking life by the horns, so to speak. And I really couldn't. I was like, by the time I met my husband, I could care less. I was like, I could care less if I ever meet anybody. I was just like, I was doing so well. Speaking of all the, self improvement, right?
Mhm.
You just become the person you're supposed to become, and you're just out there. And then you're like, oh hi, okay, what's you know
Right.
so so is that where you are? Where are you now, as far as like meeting people? Are you looking to meet someone, or in case anybody's looking or listening, or
Right, sure, sure.
right? Gotta
So
be good looking.
I'm single. I'm single, and the men, the age appropriate men for me, they actually don't want me. They want the women who are should be dating the guys who now want me, right? So the 30 something, the 35 to 40, the 30, you know what I mean? Like that whole 35 to 40
Wow.
is kind of like who's really interested in me. And
Yeah.
my my motto used to be, if it ain't gray, take it away. Because I always liked older men because I don't know why, but um and so now I've had to pivot because light, and it's kind of a cruel joke, Marilla, because I had like a smoking hot body and I was fit and everything. And I was like, no, I don't want to have sex with you. No, let's go to the covers. No, turn the lights on. Now I'm like,
Oh,
hey, this is what I got. It's coming. Like, I know it's going that direction. This is direction and whatever, but
cares.
this is what I got. And let's do it. Right. And, and so now I'm confident, but now my body's like, hey, what's happening? Like, and so it's a cruel joke. But so I am on a dating website on Bumble
Oh,
to find a partner. Of course, I would love a
of
partner, and
course.
it's got
Yeah,
to be somebody who could handle a strong, crazy, gregarious woman. And
absolutely.
I scare a lot, a lot of people. So,
Uh,
am I allowed to swear on this podcast, or because like I
Go
have?
for it.
Okay, so so I on the one hand I'm looking for a life partner that I can do major things with, and that I would love that. And so until I find Prince Charming, I am really going to have to fuck a lot of frogs, right? And so I have what I call these fuck relationships.
Oh,
That's my own word, TM.
ouch.
And it's just like I am a real sexual person, and when these young men want to celebrate my body, yes. And so they don't have the maturity, or I don't know, they don't have, like, I don't have anything to talk to them about or do anything. And so we just have a physical type of thing, and I get what I need, they get what they need, and then I'm still looking for Prince Charming. So it's kind of, and also I think if we want to dig a little deeper than that, is that an intimacy, I use my sense of humor to keep people away. And that's kind of a known, like a lot of people do that. It's my defense
It's
mechanism.
a self-defense. Yeah,
And
exactly.
so I don't normally share myself with somebody, and I'm not able to be intimate so much. And so I've done a lot of work around that to try to get there. But I think when I look back, this is kind of always how I've been. I've always had like a few different boyfriends or whatever. I'm a Gemini, I like a variety. And I just believe that, the people who have the most sex and laugh the most, I think they win. At the end of the day, I think those are the people who win. And I have been blessed to be I've just been really blessed in both those areas. And, and I don't know, I'm not going to
Just a
apologize for it.
liberated woman. You're just liberated. You're out of your shell.
And men, you know what? Men end up sleeping with all these people and having young girlfriends and whatever. Everyone's like, yeah, man, it's great. You know what? Yeah, 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 woman. Yeah, great. And the thing is, like with all the slut shaming out there and what have you, oh, so men can sleep with whomever they want. But if I want to sleep with, you know what I mean? Like all of a sudden that's not, what? Shame on you for shaming me because I am doing the same thing that you're doing.
Well, there's
and
definitely a double standard, of course, right, in society. But there are certain things, I mean, when you're married, it's a different thing. I mean, we've been married for a long time, but the
right.
key is you need to pick the right partner in your life. It's like, so you have the right partner, then you're okay. It's just one of those things. But yeah, I mean, and the nice thing is, I think that is a great big breakthrough in society in general, that nowadays, the age difference between women and men, like, it seems almost like it's not a problem. I don't know if you remember that movie. One of my favorite movies is Something's Gotta Give. Do you know that movie with
Oh, okay. Yes, yes, yes.
Diane Keaton,
Mhm.
Jack
Right.
Nicholson, and
Yes.
Keanu Reeves? Well, actually, my husband ran into him in LA once in a bar. He was there with a girl, and just kind of in the corner in Santa Monica. And he's a very laid back, very nice person. He's like, in general, just a nice person, but he's also very
Right.
good looking. And so I don't know if you remember the movie, but she ends up actually with someone, whatever. I don't want to spoil if someone wants to see it, but it tackles a lot of that stuff. And it's funny because the first time I saw it, I mean, it's old now, it's been out now. I was like, oh my gosh, it's been out for so many years. But you know it's funny because seeing it later on in life, I have a different view of some things when rather than what I did
Right.
like when I first saw it. But I think it was more shocking
Yeah.
when I saw it first, right? Diane Keaton was like
Yeah.
already, but although she made sure, she kept saying that to him, like,
Right.
are you sure? This is a great big difference in age and this and that and the other thing. Whereas for years and years, we've seen movies and books and everything else in society with the opposite, which is completely okay. It's like nobody
Right. And
wonders
it's like, hey, great. But
ever.
like
Yeah,
Madonna, I
right.
think she was 51. Her boyfriend was 26.
Oh well,
Uh,
she's
Tina
Madonna
Turner,
though.
Tina
She's Madonna.
Turner, 75. And she like, so
Yeah.
there's all these J Lo, like there's all these high profile women who are dating men or in relationship, yeah, in relationships with younger men. And you know what? Maybe my boyfriend isn't born yet. You
Right.
know?
I saw that. Actually, it's funny, I saw that the other day, like somebody said they were like, I think she was 71, whoever, I don't know who she is. But somebody said, hey, your boyfriend may not be born yet.
Right.
But I don't think it's really, honestly, it's not about the age so much as finding the right person,
Right.
right? Because you know that can also be wrong. I mean,
Right.
you just don't know. I think it's a very intricate thing to find someone on a lot of levels that will meet your expectations, which is a trap.
Right.
Because
Right.
expectations are usually what's wrong with everybody.
So,
You have
right.
to
So
lose those.
my
Right?
motto is no
No
expectations,
expectations.
and then you'll
Exactly.
never be disappointed. Um,
Right.
the younger people now are completely different than when we were that age. And what has happened was I have been involved with younger men who have taught me so much about sexual fluidity, about love, about inclusivity, and I actually went on this huge life-changing trip to South Africa with a younger man, and he signed us up for bungee jumping off the highest commercial bridge in the world. We went
Okay.
skydiving, we went canyoning, we rappelled and jumped into raging rivers. We went
Wow.
snorkeling with black tip oceanic sharks. We went cage diving with great white sharks.
Jeez.
What? So we're in line doing these things, and this guy goes, "My mom would never do this," and I said, "Neither would mine." And, and so my friend, he was like, "He thinks you're my mom," and I go, "Well, I'm not. Whatever." So he pushed me to do all these crazy things that was way outside my comfort zone, and it really changed who I was, and I see the world differently now, and I I mean, so there's a real positive thing about hanging around with people who are younger, and it's really opened my eyes and broadened my horizons, and I'm a different person as a result
I was
of
gonna
that.
say, I mean, that must have changed you so much and, just opened up all these possibilities. And look at what experiences you've had in life, because I mean, it really comes down to memories, experiences, people, and if you see, the world kind of gets smaller and smaller, like I've been watching my mom's life, and what happens, right, when you age and this and that and the other thing. And it's all those experiences that we've had together that keep me going now, and the good news is you and I have this, that we know in the present moment what's good and what's happening, and we appreciate it. And so many people, I think, lose the sight of that now is really when we're alive.
Right.
It doesn't matter what happened 5 minutes ago already, and we really don't know what's going to happen really 5 minutes from now, hopefully nothing major. But I'm just saying, you know really, we all we have is now in this moment. And so, I think I'm grateful for the fact that I was able to realize this quite a long time ago, that I know. And especially what reinforced it is I was actually in a car accident back in 2012 on New Year's Eve, which is kind of, it has a meaning to me in a lot of ways too. But um, it took me a while to recover from it. And I did a lot of things myself to be able to recover from it, because I had some panic attacks and anxiety and all that stuff. And I had to kind of fight for the right treatments, and get a right physical therapist and all these other things. And but the doctor eventually was like, it was like, OMG, like, how did you, because without, and I know people need medicine and people need drugs and but I had some reactions that were like adverse and different, like it made me feel worse instead of better. And I said to myself, okay, well, Morella, are you going to be like this the rest of your life, or are you going to do something about it? And so I had to literally make a plan and it was like literally one step at a time, tiny step at a time every day. But it was incremental, and I told myself, okay, if you can do this, if you can walk, the dog further down the street or whatever, to that point. And then, I found listening to music was helping me a lot. And I found listening to speaking of podcasts, or this wasn't really a podcast, but it was talking to someone I had never talked to before, like meeting someone new. Yeah. And this lady, she gave me a card just randomly. I was somewhere in the store or something. She's like, hey, I have this business and I do, would you like to, learn about it or whatever. It was some kind of nutritional thing. And I said, sure. And I called her, and it was like, oh my gosh, like a breath of fresh air, because it was, and then I figured it out because I have a background in psychology. But in any case, I was like, oh my gosh, I know why. Is because it's all new information, right? So I'm firing all these new things in my brain, which I needed to heal, right, from the big concussion, whatever. So it was, it was helping me. Same with jazz music, for example, because jazz is very unpredictable, especially the kind of jazz I'm talking about, not the light jazz, the real jazz. It will be kind of like all over the place, right? And so your brain doesn't know what to expect, because if you keep listening the same melody and whatever, you already know. But so in any case, I try to tell people, like, you need to also take responsibility for your recovery, like just like you did after your chemo. You went on this retreat, and then these people helped you, but you look at you, how much you're doing yourself. You discovered the comedy. You went on this retreat. You're doing all kinds of self-improvement, and and opening yourself to the world, basically, by allowing young people into your life, and doing all that.
First of all, back to the jazz. I love jazz as long as it doesn't sound like jazz, because it's like a cat. You don't know what you're gonna get. You don't know if you're gonna get this or like another. So like,
yes, no, it can be all over the place. And
right.
Some jazz can literally get on my nerves so much that I can't listen. But I'm talking about the more classic, more kind of bluesy, like I like the blues a lot. So it has to have some kind of beat. I don't like it to be like kind of all over the place, but at the same time, I don't like the jazz at all.
No, I got you.
It's like, it doesn't know what it is. Like,
It's a cat.
I'm sorry, I
A
don't mean
cat.
to be mean to someone who loves light jazz. It's just just the fact that I want it to be either this or that. Like, make up your mind.
Right. It's like you said, unpredictable. And
Yeah.
I had a guy ask me out and he wanted to go to a place that had jazz. And I said, I love jazz, except if it sounds like jazz, just like I love coffee, as long as it doesn't taste like coffee. Right. So, but back to what you were saying about the younger people and the experiences. Um, this South African trip actually propelled me into skydiving with this young man. And I've been skydiving 7 times, and now I am getting my AFF license,
Wow.
accelerated free fall license. Like, who would jump out of a plane? I'd be like,
Wow.
no, I'd never jump out of a plane. I've done it 7 times. And so now I'm going to do it by myself. And he actually pressed me to do base jumping, which is you go a short distance. Instead of 18,000 feet to the ground, you're going 300 feet off a bridge. Okay. So
Wow.
you throw
Yeah.
your parachute.
Yeah.
And so what I learned from him was that I can do it. I
That's
can do it.
amazing. That
Right.
is amazing to me.
And he totally opened up this whole other chapter.
Yeah.
And frankly, I was trying to keep up. Like, in others, I'm thinking, no, I'm gonna, you know what I mean? We're running through the airport. I'm like, I can run as fast as you can. He was like
Because you were
surprised that I kept up with him and everything.
because you're also competitive, and
Yeah,
it sounds like you're a perfectionist too, a little
I'm
bit.
recovering. I'm a recovering perfection.
Ever. And I never want to judge people. Here's the thing. I think that most people make a big mistake when they are looking at someone, and it's like, why don't you try to understand instead of judge immediately, right? It's like, you don't know, because you're not in this person's head. You didn't live their life. You have no idea what's going on. And I mean, with the exception of, let's say, serial killers, like people like that. I mean, like, you don't want to understand this guy. It's like he's way too much. I'm talking about, not non-fringe cases, right? When people, like in life, what do we tend to do? We tend to judge people almost immediately about things. And we all do this. We still do this, but
100%.
pull back those, that rope, and start really painting the picture, and listening and understanding why this is happening. And guess what? We're all human. We're all weak. We have weaknesses. Nobody's perfect. And in fact, the ones that look the most perfect are not.
Right. So, okay. So, right. Exactly that point. One of the personal growth seminars that I went to, they said, go to somebody who you would never go to.
There
Like, in
you
other words,
go.
like, who's the opposite person that you would feel that you would be with. And so I went with the person that had mismatchy clothes, stripes, and plaids, and all this crazy stuff. And I went there, and
How
that person,
irritating.
interesting. Now we're married. No,
Oh,
and I found him very interesting. And so what that exercise proved was, yeah, you know,
you
you
have
don't
to
know,
look beyond.
and you also don't know what they're going through, right?
You
Like,
don't.
what kind
No.
of grief they have, what kind of and so that's the other thing is I always try to make people laugh and compliment people, because I feel it gives them a little,
Relief.
reprieve from their situation. And that's, I mean, that's the best thing, I think, is making somebody laugh. And it's the
The
best
gift.
compliment when somebody says that I'm funny. That's the best compliment that I could
You
ever.
are so naturally funny and charming and wonderful that you have even no idea. Like, honestly, I really say that from the bottom of my heart. I'm so glad we met, and and we connected, and that you're just bringing so much joy. Look at how many people you already brought joy to, from going on the journey, just starting a new thing in your life, like completely going on a completely different tangent. Anyways, but yeah, definitely the problem too with comedians, they're having this issue that they've been out on the road and they've been comedians forever. And we watch quite a few comedy shows. My husband is an actor besides being in sales of cars. So I'm kind of around this, and he always brings up some new interesting things to show me that he knows. And we like comedy shows, and we watch quite a few different comedians, and like Patton Oswalt is one of our favorites, and he can be pretty edgy himself, right? But there are some that are very much like on one side of the spectrum, and they're also having trouble now with people being offended very easily
And hey, we're not going to say mean stuff about other people, like, so we've really, the pendulum has swung, and sometimes it swings way too far, where they're like, okay, you comedians, you can't say anything about this, that, and the other. So we've got to it's going to come back a little bit more, I believe. But I think in the end, it's just about love and kindness. We're here for a short
it
period of
is.
time. And so at the core, if it's love and kindness, and that you're just making fun of somebody, just, you're not trying to disparage them. Exactly. So
And I think if you not that you're careful, but if you balance it correctly, you can always come back from a joke, right? And kind of make it come back to you or come back somewhere else. And those great comedians are able to do that, where they will soften the blow, so to speak. Like they will punch it, and then they will come back where it's back to kindness now, and it's back to, okay, we can now relax. And that's the key, I think, is to keep it that way.
well, so okay, so on that point, so my name is Leslie Lang. So a lot of people think I'm going to be Chinese. Obviously, I'm not Chinese.
I love
I mean, I wish I were, because then I'd finally be able to date a white guy. I mean,
that.
so like that sounds racist, right? But it's just absolutely true.
That's funny.
So I
And
mean, that's the funny thing.
true.
And so
Truth is
just
funny.
by calling it out and then saying, yeah, that does sound racist, but it's true. So it's like what you said about like softening the blow, I guess. So
And it's funny because the thing you said about the name, my first name is Italian. Mirella is Italian, completely Italian spelling. When I was in Italy, everybody's like, "What's your real name?" I'm like, "That's my name." I'm sorry, it's boring here, but my mom just happened to see a movie when she was like 16 years old, and she said, "If I have a girl, I want to name her Mirella." And I happened to like fall in love with everything Italian, so all my life I learned Italian language, Italian or whatever. Never learned Spanish, silly, because I speak like I learned five, but whatever, I should have. But in any case, do you know how many times I get things in the mail, and I get addressed as if I am a Latina, or if it's assumed that I speak Spanish. I get like Spanish versions of things in the mail, people, because they assume, and it's not even Spanish, it's, or Mexican or whatever, it's actually Italian. But there's a lot of ignorance, in our society in general about these things. And
it's an honest mistake, right?
yeah, it's an honest mistake. I mean, I don't mind. It makes me crack up and kind of laugh about it. But also, people expect me to have black hair, right,
Right,
and look differently.
right. And so this,
Blue eyes.
right. So when I show up and I'm getting my
Right.
nails done, this is the whole reason. This whole thing is the hinge about why I can say I love you in 18
I
languages.
love that. Yeah, I
Okay.
was going to ask you about it. I'm glad.
So I'm getting my nails done, and so everyone thinks I'm going to be Chinese, right? So then, and then or Vietnamese, right?
Right.
So when I'm getting my nails done, I, I said, you know what? I would like to learn how to say I love you in Vietnamese. So it's
Oh.
Anh yêu em nhiều lắm, right? That's I
Ooh.
love you very much, right? And so then that became my hobby. So then I would meet somebody else. So I'm like, why ni in Chinese, or I stay mas in Japanese. And so what happened was that just became my hobby, that people do, other people, they learn swear words and stuff. I just learned, that was my hobby. I just wanted to learn I love you, because I just wanted to put that out. So I was on a cruise, and this is really the funny thing, is that on a cruise, they have people from all different countries working on there. So they'll say, hey, this person from Hungary, and
Okay.
their name, and from
Very
Hungary.
cool.
So I was pretty smoking hot. This was a long time ago. And I'm like, I was by myself on this cruise with some like people that I didn't know. And so I was invited at the last minute. And so I was known now. So people would come up to me and go, hey, I'm this guy from Croatia, and I'd be like, and then I would learn. So can you tell me how to say I love you in Croatian? And ja te volim. So that's just how it happened. Then I'm doing it Hungarian, Italian, French. And so at the end of this cruise, I was like, yeah, Mahalkita. Oh, I know Mahalkita. So we got off the cruise. I got off the cruise to go shop or something. And every time I had left, the gentleman that put the plank down to go from the ship to land, they were Filipino. So I was like, Mahalkita, Mahalkita, Mahalkita. I love you, I love you, I love you, right? So of course they remembered me. So if you're late getting back to a cruise ship, they leave without you. They say, look, if you're at this port and you don't make it back by this time, so we're in the, bought some jewelry or something and I was late. And so I'm